And hi everybody, welcome back to Fresh Outlook. I'm TWB. As we take a look back at 2012, another topic we just couldn't seem to get enough of, the economy. Unless Congress and the President strike a deal in the next 48 hours, it is over that fiscal cliff we go. No rush or anything, right? Take a look.
All of us, every single one of us, agrees that tax rates shouldn't go up. I just spoke to Speaker Boehner, and I also met with Senator Reid. In the next few days, I've asked leaders of Congress to work towards a package that prevents a tax hike on middle-class Americans. Once this legislation is agreed to, I expect Democrats and Republicans to get back to Washington and have it pass both chambers. And I will immediately sign that legislation into law before January 1st of next year.
I am not convinced at all that when the bill passes the House today that it will die in the Senate. At some point, the Senate has to act. They failed to act. We have a bill sitting at the desk in the Senate that protects all Americans from an increase in taxes. They could take up that bill sitting at the desk. They could pass it. They could amend it, and they could help move the process. But to date, they've done nothing.
The congressional leadership here, and thank them for their time. I think we're all aware that
U.S. President Barack Obama cuts short his Hawaiian holiday and returns to Washington. Leaving his wife Michelle and 2 daughters behind, Obama's getting ready for a crucial budget deadline with the White House and Republicans still far apart. In one sign of hope, Speaker John Boehner has urged the Democrat-controlled Senate to avoid the so-called fiscal cliff. He's offered to at least consider any bill the upper chamber produces.
All right, well, it's a moment of truth. The clock is ticking. I believe they're meeting, the Senate majority and minority leaders.
Right about
they're
now.
meeting
That's
as
right.
we speak.
That's
They
right.
could be ready for a vote as soon as tomorrow, is what they're saying. What's going to happen, panel? Make a prediction.
No.
Will they put a Band-Aid? Will they pass something?
I believe they're going to cut a deal.
They are going to cut a deal.
I believe
right.
they are. I
Okay.
believe they are, because everybody knows that what the Republican Party has been doing is tantamount to holding a gun to your kid's head and holding it hostage. And everyone knows it's not about the other side. It's about them. And if they ever hope to be reelected to national office, they cannot allow this to
Why
make
is
it
it
to the
the
cliff.
last minute? I mean, why is it always to the midnight hour?
Because you're waiting for the blink, right? The
pressure, the squeeze.
Listen, the Tea Party caucus within the Republican caucus in the House of Representatives is a very dogmatic, stick together, stick to your guns caucus. They're not going to raise taxes for under any circumstances. Some of them will be gone in the new year, but that caucus is still going to exist, and so we're being held hostage by that particular caucus. What's happening right now is just political maneuvering. I mean, when you think about all the ways in which the fiscal cliff can really hurt folk, none of that has really been properly discussed and fleshed out in media or in any of the talk shows or anything. What we've been talking about is tax cuts for wealthy folk, and at the end of the day, that's all this particular.
We do have a graphic. Let's see what's going to go into effect if we go over this fiscal cliff in terms of spending cuts, tax increases. There we go. What goes into effect? What expires?
Yeah, look
Bush
at
era
that.
tax cuts, Obama payroll cut.
That's right.
Tax deductions. Oh, unemployment benefits. That's
right.
huge. What goes into effect? There you go. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there.
Again, it can be a nightmare scenario, and we've been focused a little bit too much on tax cuts on the rich. Think about what happens to those folk on federal long-term unemployment benefits that will actually be cut off.
It's like 2 million
right?
people.
These are people who are going to be, exactly, it's 40% of that 5
more
million.
safety net.
And then those folk are going to be hungry. Again, it's just it's that we're at this point is ridiculous. But what has happened is that now, when you have Reid and McConnell, 2 expert negotiators working on a deal, I think they will come up with something by Monday. They can then put something to a vote in the Senate that will pass, and then they can pass it to the House, and then they'll kind of force the House to actually have a vote.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, 3 percentage points out of our GDP. And also, what was the other point I wanted to make?
It will directly impact our economy.
Right. And 3% unemployment.
That's right.
I mean, it's a huge, kick in the gut.
It
and
is.
It just bothers me. Like I said, why is everything to the
It
last
is.
minute? And, I mean, is there really going to be a legitimate deal, or is there going to be a Band-Aid
You don't
here?
think so, Francesca?
Well, no, I mean, I just don't think it's the deal that anybody wanted.
No, there's going to be
I don't,
compromise. I mean, no one's going to be happy.
Right, but I also don't think that, I mean, I just wish, I mean, the 112th Congress has been the worst Congress that we've probably ever had.
That's
and,
right.
you know, to push it to something like this and to really have people's livelihoods at stake for no reason, really, it's just sort of more digging in your heels and being stubborn is, I think, a bit ridiculous. I mean, when you have middle-class Americans with a potential tax hike of what, anywhere from 700, you know,
yeah, 3,500 an average family is going to endure, right?
That's real cash.
Yeah.
That's painful. And, you know, it's not going to help when people have to put food on the table, especially when they're not going to be able to, you know, to be able to collect unemployment if they have, you know, somebody in the household that isn't working. The earned income tax credit, there are certain things that need to stay that, you know, I'd like to see stay. No, they'll do something. It's just not the deal that anybody really wants.
Well, we do have a slight update on the fiscal cliff in terms of what some of the parties are saying. Let's take a look.
Many sources out of Washington say the White House is preparing a scaled-down proposal to send to Capitol Hill with hopes of avoiding the most serious impacts of the so-called fiscal cliff. At this point, it seems the only real hope for some sort of legislation rests in the U.S. Senate. Majority Leader Harry Reid continues to support the Senate passing a bill that would hold the tax cuts for 98% of the country or family income under $250,000 and also extends unemployment benefits. That's an approach floated by President Barack Obama last Friday. But as the Senate opened session today, Senator Reid sounded a tone of great frustration.
If we go over the cliff, and it looks like that's where we're headed, Mr. President, the House of Representatives, as we speak, with 4 days left after today before the first year, aren't here with the Speaker having told them they'll give them 48 hours notice. I can't imagine their consciences. They're out wherever they are around the country, and we're here trying to get something done.
Having failed to offer up a compromise solution last week, the House of Representatives remains on Christmas break unless there is a fiscal cliff breakthrough.
The American people, I don't think, understand the House of Representatives is operating without the House of Representatives. It's being operated with a dictatorship of the Speaker, not allowing the vast majority of the House of Representatives to get what they want.
I've been wondering where the House of Reps has been for many months now. Where are they?
They're in their vacation homes and back home in their districts, and hopefully they'll come back in early next week to address the situation. It's interesting because he's saying they're being run as a dictatorship. What he really means there is that, you know, there's not going to be a vote in the House unless it's forced through this Senate process, because they don't bring things to the floor unless the majority of the Republican caucus is in favor of bringing it to the floor, which means that even though you have 218 Democratic representatives, they won't be able to vote on it. So this is all politics. Pressure from the Senate will force them to bring a vote to the floor where Democrats can vote, and that's when you'll probably get some kind of mishmash deal here.
That's what it's going to take. I mean, just in terms of some other cliffs we might go over, a lot of people are talking about this dairy cliff. Milk prices will double if the farm bill is overlooked. $7 a gallon. Could you imagine paying $7 a gallon? I mean, that's a real metaphor for where we're headed. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Well, I mean, it also goes to show you what's wrong with our system. I mean, our dairy subsidies have so long been there. And our, you know, I'm all for farmers, don't get me wrong by any means, but however the system works or hasn't worked or hasn't evolved, we're sort of at a disconnect, and milk prices, like gas prices, are a real barometer of what's wrong. So when you're looking at something like that, that does affect people.
Here's the problem with the entire Congress, and this is the House and the Senate. They're not representative of the United States. There's not enough women, there's not enough people who aren't lawyers, not enough people of color, not enough people from backgrounds that aren't wealthy. They are not representative of these United States. If they were, something like the milk cliff is something that would hit them home and hit them more directly. So until we actually have a Congress that is going to be representative of these United States,
and that's because it's a money game, right, James?
Well, money and power.
Right, who has the money to actually run the campaigns to
somebody
get
like
elected.
South Carolina who just came in, and you might say, you know, he's super conservative, you know, African American, you know, but so where does he fit in? Is he representative or not?
He's not. He doesn't represent the black population in South Carolina.
You know?
Well, let's talk a little bit just in general about strikes, protests, where the U.S. economy is heading, U.S. industry. I mean, it's just this Armageddon between, you know, Walmart, Michigan, unions, Black Friday strikes. I mean, it all just seems to be, I hate this phrase, it's just out of control. I mean, everyone is disgruntled. The economy is to blame. I mean, where are we headed? I mean, what are our thoughts on 2013?
Some might say that we're actually headed back into a period of activism. And I know that, James, you hope for that to be fact. And I think that the passivity, kind of lack of motivation, the domination of money in the marketplace, I think this may be kind of a time when the pendulum will start swinging in the other direction. I think we may be upon a decade of activism in this country.
Well, listen, we can't grow our economy properly and have this battle between executives and the 1% and labor operating at the same time, which is why you're seeing people protest it so vehemently, because the economy needs to grow. But listen, there's things to do on both sides of this. Obviously, there's been a concentration of wealth amongst executives, amongst people in the 1%, and we need to address that somehow. I mean, that's partially through taxation, partially through business ethics and fairness, things of that nature. But at the end of the day, unions also have to step into the 21st century. They have to become more representative, and they've got to understand that in this economy, some of the demands that unions make have to be mitigated against what's realistic in terms of this.
Was Occupy Wall Street effective on any level? I mean, it got us talking, but did it really make any great strides?
I think a lot of people say that, in fact, you know, I know for a fact, a lot of people, because I was there, you know, the very first day of the protest covering it, I know for a fact that it got people talking and it got people inspired. And sometimes that's enough of a seed to plant, and then it takes a while for that tree to grow. You know, as far as the union issue is concerned, though, I would like to see some of the, you know, free market agility, if you will, that you can find exist, that the unions sometimes can block in order to see us leapfrog into.
So what's the future of unions in this country?
Well, I'd like to see them give up some of their, you know, lock hold on certain things, even though I'm definitely in favor of organized labor, but I want to be able to see them be non-abusive so much of the times that they have been, for, like I was saying before, you know, having to take breaks and certain things that, you know, it doesn't really make sense. Yeah, in Chicago. I know we got to go to break.
Okay, yes, we got to go to break. I want to remind everybody watching at home, I join the conversation on Twitter, hashtag Fresh Outlook. And as we continue our year in review, up next we'll discuss Hurricane Sandy. Even though it hit 2 months ago, many are still feeling the effects. That's next on Fresh Outlook. Stay with us.